This is Cashing Out on VSiN, the sports betting network.
It is hour number 3 of Cashing Out right here on VSiN, the sports betting network. We've got ourselves a tremendous hour coming up as we're going to be taking a look at a little bit of everything. We've got the Masters and that tremendous Sunday that is going to be coming up. Additionally, we've got ourselves a lot of great baseball that's going to be happening on Sunday, and we have to hit the ice. We've hit so many sports here tonight, but we have not gone to the hockey front, and you know what? We are going to be doing so in about 15 or so minutes. As Jonathan Davis, he does an absolutely amazing job here at the network. Check that. That'll be about 30 minutes from now. He's going to be joining me. We're going to take a look at what we've all got on this Hockey Sunday, as not just the NBA is coming to an end of the regular season, and we had John Von Tobel on in hour number 1 to talk about how he's playing the final day of the NBA regular season, but hockey season is starting to wind down as well. We saw the triumph of Alex Ovechkin being able to get that record-setting goal to be able to pass him in front of Wayne Gretzky, so that was tremendous what we saw this week, but there's a lot that needs to be settled out there on the ice, and when we get into the NHL playoffs, I mean, it's just such great action in general. Again, I'm not necessarily a guy that bets a lot of hockey myself, so my greatest triumph ever, I still remember when the Golden Knights were facing off against the Washington Capitals in the Stanley Cup. I was able to get 2-1 on the Washington Capitals to be able to win the Stanley Cup when they were down 1-0 in that series against Golden Knights. They won 4 straight and pretty much retired on top after that. But you know what? We've got ourselves a lot of fun to take a look at. And Jonathan Davis, one of the best in the business, he's going to be joining me in the next few minutes. And one of the best out there as well is the Masters, as we've had ourselves a lot of fun the last 3 days, and it right now sees Rory McIlroy in the lead by 2 strokes. He was able to go out there on Saturday. He shot a 6 under. Now, Bryson DeChambeau was able to have a great birdie to be able to end his round. He is currently the number 2 option at -10, and everyone else is 4 strokes or more off the pace, and I think that's very interesting because we were talking about this in hour number 2 with Spencer Aguiar. Does an absolutely tremendous job over at Rotoballer, and he was talking about this. The last time that we saw a golfer come back from more than, or at least 4 strokes back to be able to win the Masters, you have to go back to 2011 when Charles Schwartzel was able to do so. That was when we saw the infamous Rory McIlroy collapse, where it looks like he has everything in full control of the tournament, and then he just completely cratered in the back half of it. So we'll see if that might be lingering in the mind of Rory McIlroy a little bit, and we'll see if DeChambeau or one of these other guys might be able to come back and might be able to make a rally. But certainly it's been a lot of dominance by those top 2 guys. I just continue to refer to it as well. Haven't seen a lot of live guys have a lot of success out here in the majors over the last few seasons. DeChambeau seems to be the one guy that has really been able to bust through and has been able to have that success, but this is another guy that I think is very interesting, and this is the one that I take a look at. Like, now, I'm not too much of a golf bettor myself, but if I had to bet one thing on the board right now in golf, it would be Patrick Reed, a top 5 finish at a +140, mainly because, well, he's in the top 5 right now. He's right now tied for 4th with Ludwig Egbert, so I do think that he has a chance to be able to bust through, be able to make it top 5, being able to get that at plus money. You feel pretty good about that. Now the guys that are going to be chasing him, Scotty Scheffler is right now at 5 under, Shane Lowry's at 5 under, same with Jason Day. Those are guys that may have some experience. Heck, even Zach Johnson is a guy that has won some majors in his day, albeit a very, very long time ago, but him being currently in the top 10, that's been pretty rock solid. And then we obviously have a lot of different matchups you're able to take a look at as well, but I do think that we have ourselves things set up for a really good day over there at the Masters, and I do think that it's going to be a very, very fascinating just watch in general, whether you're betting on it, whether you're just watching it casually. The Sunday at the Masters, one of the great events that we see in all sports, and one of my favorite sports, that would be the sport of baseball. So I think that there's a lot of money to be made right now. There's going to be a lot of money to be made during the summer months when there's going to be those of us that are going to be hoping and praying that football comes back, and baseball, it is always here for us. It always finds a way to be able to just keep us lively before we can get football back in our lives. So how about if we do dive in and take a look at a few games that we do have for this Sunday right here on Cashing Out on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network. And we do have ourselves the Toronto Blue Jays and the Baltimore Orioles going at it. 963, 964 on the card. Old Cade Povich is going to be on the bump for the Orioles, and Jose Barrios, he goes for the Toronto Blue Jays. I like talking a lot about home and road splits, so whenever you get Jose Barrios on the the card. I always have to talk about that, as right now he and the Blue Jays are between plus 110 to a plus 121 underdogs. Meanwhile, between minus 125 to minus 135 is that number on the Orioles. And total on this game, you're finding it at an 8.5. This opened up with the juice being very heavy on the under. Now the juice is starting to come in a little bit more on the over, so very intriguing to take a look at that, as I'm personally going to be taking a look at this total under. I did set my total at an 8.3. Now, with Jose Barrios, I just mentioned it in terms of him not being the same pitcher when he is away from home rather than at home. For Barrios, this dates all the way back to when he was with Minnesota. This dates all the way back to 2016. So this is a full decade long of data. But for Barrios, when he's at home, he is giving up less than a home run per 9 innings. His ERA for his career at home is a 3.58, whopping 4.59. When he's away from home, that home runs per 9 rate goes up to about 1.4 home runs per 9 innings. So certainly something that you want to take caution with. And for the Toronto Blue Jays, I don't think that they're like the worst bullpen in the big leagues or anything like that, but they're certainly not great. Chad Green is a guy that I've always thought has been pretty rock solid. You've got a guy in Yimi Garcia who's been able to find it over the last 12 or so months after he had a miserable year 2 years ago. So he's been a little bit helpful on that front. But I do still think that for the Baltimore Orioles, who had a nice rally to be able to win yesterday, you did have to utilize some primary guys on that bullpen, but still Felix Bautista, Yunier Cano, that's one of the best 1-2 punches they're going to find in all of baseball. Brian Baker has been pretty solid in that bullpen. They used Keegan Aiken for a few pitches yesterday. Not necessarily a guy that I'm jonesing to be able to back, but that said, with the Baltimore Orioles, I do still feel like this is one of the more fearsome lineups out there in all of baseball. You've had a few guys get off to a rough start, but Cedric Mullins looking like a silver slugger once again. He's done a great job of being able to find a way on base. Right now, giving you north of a 350 on base to begin the season. Few home runs, so that's been nice to see. Gunnar Henderson, who started out the year on the injured list, just has not been able to find it at this point. 167 on base with not a lot of pop. Tyler O'Neill hitting for a 300, but not necessarily giving you the home run power. And then for the Toronto Blue Jays, Vlad Guerrero Jr. still has as many home runs as Greg Peterson. That's not a place where you want to be. Now, I say that knowing that Guerrero has been doing a nice job finding way on base, giving you about a 360 on base, and he's still doing the little things well. Bo Bichette has had a nice resurgence after last season. You could tell that something was clearly off with him. Missed a lot of games due to injury, and right now he's batting above a 300. And Anthony Santander, the former Baltimore Oriole, finally, ding dong, the witches said, he finally got his first home run with the Toronto Blue Jays yesterday, but still, once again, have my trepidations in terms of the Toronto Blue Jays bullpen. Do think that it might be a little bit of a sticky spot for them. And Kate Povich, want to talk about home and road splits, whole heck of a lot better when he is at home rather than on the road. For his career, which that's a little bit over a season, ERA north of a 6 on the road, closer to about a 3.3 when he's at home. The hard contact numbers, they go way down when he's at home. I do think that he finds a way to persevere, get the job done for the Orioles. So I did set my total here on an 8.3 at the 8.5. I'm going to be looking at that total under, and I do like the Orioles on the money line. Set them at a minus 132. And what else you want to be doing? Unlocking your winning edge over here with VSiN. We've got an unbeatable offer for you until August 1st. You're able to get all access to everything that we do here at VSiN for just $59. You sign up now and you're able to save 50% off the normal price. This includes a daily best bet emails with what all of us as hosts along with the guests are betting on for that day, exclusive betting splits from both DraftKings and Circa Sportsbooks, complete with trends and analysis to sharpen your game, 24/7 video on the VSiN Watch app, and so much more. Every sport, every edge, all for one low price. You're able to get full access to everything that we do here through August 1st for just $59 over at VSiN.com/subscribe. That is VSIN.com/subscribe. And we're starting to see this game pop onto the board, as for the longest of time we were not seeing numbers in terms of the Chicago Cubs and the LA Dodgers. I was mentioning this a little bit earlier in the show that it should be Colin Ray saying hip hip hooray to a start for the Chicago Cubs, and that is indeed the case. We are starting to get some openers with this game. This is 961, 962 on the card, and the Dodgers, by the way, I was wondering this about an hour or so ago, and it is indeed true. They flashed it up on ESPN, the fact that the 16-0 Dodgers loss, that is the most lopsided shutout loss at home in Dodgers history. And the Dodgers have a lot of history, so for them to get blown out 16-0, not something that you see very often. And now they're going to be looking at Tyler Glasnow to be able to get them up off the mat. Colin Ray, he's going for the Cubs. And right now the Cubs between about plus 215 to a plus 221 is the number on them. For the Dodgers, you're able to find that money line right around about minus 250, minus 267. If you're looking to lay the run line, that is at a minus 125. And I very much am going to be looking to lay the run line. Don't really want to go past a minus 125. I'm willing to go up to a minus 125. Again, with the Dodgers, I will continue to refer to this until the cows come home on it. With this LA Dodgers team, you do want to be taking a look at the run line because since the beginning of the 2022 season, they have won 318 regular season games, all but 55 have been by multiple runs. So north of 81% of these regular season games have come by multiple runs. You saw the Death Star lineup that it's very much held down here on Saturday, but still Mookie Betts, Shohei Ohtani, these guys are just absolutely incredible. Freddie Freeman, he's coming off of the sort of shower slip situation, but I mean, even these guys at the bottom of the full, Kike Hernandez always does a little bit better in the postseason than the regular season, it seems, but he's been able to give the team 4 home runs thus far this season. Will Smith has done a great job of getting jiggy with it and being able to move the line. And for the Chicago Cubs, do have a little bit of trepidation with some of these guys like a Matt Shaw in the lineup. Shaw's not a necessary guy that I'm bullish on. Pete Armstrong has had a tough time moving the line. Seiya Suzuki has been very rock solid, hitting north of 300. He's been able to supply the deep ball for the team. And then when it comes to Colin Ray, very much a pitcher contact guy that I feel like had a little bit of good fortune over the last few seasons. Has no shortage of familiarity with the NL Central Division as he was pitching for the Milwaukee Brewers last season. But guy that's only going to give you about 7.5 strikeouts per 9 innings, does give out north of 2.5 walks per 9. The home runs per 9 rate the last 2 seasons has been north of 1.5 home runs per 9 innings. You don't want that going up against the LA Dodgers. And then for Tyler Glasnow, since getting to LA, a fielding independent below 3, getting 11.5 strikeouts per 9 innings. Do like the Dodgers on the run line. And did somebody total at 8.3, so you're at the 8.5. I do like the under. And coming up next, how about if we take a look at some more baseball games for this Sunday right here on Cashing Out on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Welcome back to Cashing Out here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
This is Cashing Out right here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network. We're going to be joined in 15 minutes by Jonathan Davis. He does an absolutely tremendous job here at the network. Taking a look at this great game that we all know and love of hockey. The NHL regular season is starting to wind down, so we'll talk about how he's betting on the games for Sunday, what's all been working for him out there on the ice, and additionally, we're going to be taking a little bit of a look at the playoff picture. If there's maybe some futures that he's looking at that might be able to give you some good value there, so we're going to have a lot of fun talking to Jonathan in about 15 or so minutes. We served up a lot of sports here on the show tonight. We've been taking a look at just a little bit of everything, whether that be what we're getting out there in terms of Masters, the NBA regular season winding down. Certainly my bread and butter sport this time of year is baseball, so you've been getting a lot of that. And do want to alert you guys of this as well. By unanimous decision, you did see Alexander Volkanovski be able to get the win over Diego Lopez. I was talking about it in hour number 1. It was a lot of juice to lay, but Volkanovski is a bad man that you do not want to be going up against. He was able to get the job done. He got the win. He won the total strikes battle in this one. He was able to win the significant strikes battle by about double as well, and he was the only one that was able to get a takedown, as apparently Lopez did not attempt a single takedown in this one. So interesting strategy there from our good friend and Mr. Diego Lopez. And Volkanovski, he's able to get the job done. And as they always like to say, in order to be the man, you got to beat the man. And for Volkanovski, he has been the man for a very, very long time, as this guy has been able to just win fight after fight after fight. And Paddy Pimblett, he was able to win over Michael Chandler as well. So a little bit of a chalkier card here with regards to the main event in terms of these UFC fights. So that was a very fun one that was out there, if I'm not mistaken, out there in Miami. And I know that the Stars were out for those fights, and the Stars are going to be out with regards to the baseball card for this Sunday. And how about if we do go right back out there to Miami? I don't know if it's going to be as star-studded of an event as the UFC event that we just saw here on Sunday, as it's Cal Quantrill Day for the Miami Marlins. But you know what? Cal Quantrill made you a lot of money for the Cleveland Guardians last few seasons. Don't know if he's going to quite do so in a Marlins uniform. 9:51, 9:52 on the card. The Washington Nationals throw out their Mackenzie Gore to oppose Mr. Quantrill, and we're seeing mostly 8s out there with regards to the total. A few stray 7.5s, and right now for the Washington Nationals, they're between minus 135 to minus 142 favorites, and between plus 118 to plus 128 is that number on Miami. And with regards to the money line price, I did set the Washington Nationals at a minus 143. I would not be wanting to go past a minus 142 with them, but I would be willing to lay this summer. If you're looking at the run line, by the way, you're seeing as good as a plus 130, as low as a plus 120. I don't know if I want to mess around too much with regards to that run line, because I do think that this is going to be a lower scoring game. I set my total at 7.4. Cal Quantrill just has a way of being able to get outs. Like, it's been a shaky first two starts of the season for him, and last year it was rough out there in Colorado. A pitcher contact guy out there at Coors Field, typically not going to go well for you. I still remember that run that he had for the Cleveland Guardians back half of 2022 to 2023. Just every single start. 6 innings, 3 runs allowed. Cleveland Guardians win by 1 run every single time, and it was a 15-game winner. I feel like that was a little bit of a flash in the pan, but you know what you're going to be able to get out of him. He's going to be able to keep his pitch count down. He's going to be able to give you a little bit of length, and that's what you need, because it's a Miami Marlins bullpen that is not necessarily so tremendous. You got the Anthonys, Anthony Bender, Anthony Veziano have had their struggles. Calvin Fauché, he was a really good reliever last season and has been not a good reliever thus far this season. And then on the flip side, you've got a Washington Nationals team that they're going to need to get a good start out of Mackenzie Gore, because I have absolutely no faith whatsoever in this bullpen. When you've got the likes of Lucas Sims coming out of there, Jose Ferrer is not a guy that I think is necessarily so magnificent. Jackson Rutledge, guys like this, that's not something that you want to be messing around with. But Mackenzie Gore has been a really good starter in this league for the last few years. Was very unlucky last year. He had a 3.90 ERA, but a 3.53 fielding independent. Was generating about 10 strikeouts per 9 innings. Only gave up 0.8 home runs per 9 innings. A little bit of a better start this year with 5 runs allowed over the course of 17 innings, and his whiff rate is just through the roof right now. 25 punch-outs in 17 innings thus far this season. Going back to the Miami Marlins team that I still remember, there was a game 2 weeks ago where this is obviously based on the numbers that we had 2 weeks ago, but 2 weeks ago on a Friday, they trotted out there a starting 9 in terms of their lineup that had a combined between all 9 of them 45 career home runs. Like, you've got a guy in Matt Mervis who's starting to come into his own. He's been able to give you 3 home runs. A little bit of upside there, but you've got a lot of young guys, and you've got a lot of guys with not a lot of pop. Derek Hill has been a little bit of a disappointment thus far for Miami. I thought that he was going to be a little bit better after he was able to have a few moments of brilliance with the Texas Rangers last season. Additionally, you do have a guy that does a great job of being able to move the line in Xavier Edwards. He hit for a cycle last season. Not a guy with really any sort of power whatsoever, but knows how to be able to move the line. Griffin Conine is a guy that I think is going to be relatively solid for this unit. And for the Washington Nationals, they've, over the last 2 or 3 years, have been one of the best teams at not striking out at the plate. We're noticing those strikeout numbers have seen a steady increase. Now, you are dealing with a little bit of an injury to Nathaniel Lowe, and that is a big deal because he's been able to give this team 3+ home runs, has consistently been able to get on base, and C.J. Abrams landing on the injured list. That's a little bit less than savory for the team as well, but Paul DeJong, who's off to a slow start to the season, we saw him hit a bunch of bombs last season. Keibert Ruiz is doing a nice job finding a way on base, being able to give you a little bit of power. Alex Call has been called upon to be able to get on base, and he's done so, hitting north of a 350, so you feel relatively good about that with the Washington Nationals. Again, with the Nationals having a few guys in general that are banged up, with it being a more of a day-to-day situation with Lowe, and then C.J. Abrams being out of the fold, I do think that it causes you to have a little bit of caution with regards to taking a look at an over. So I did set my total more around 7.4. Miami has been playing a little bit less pitcher-friendly than I thought it would, but it's still a little bit more of a pitcher's ballpark. I'm going to be in on the under. And I do like the money line here of the Washington Nationals. Will be willing to go up to a minus 142 there. And what you do want is to have VSiN at your fingertips wherever you are, whether you're at home, whether you're on the road, or on the go. There's more ways now than ever to be able to tune into VSiN. You're able to stream us live on VSiN.com, the VSiN Watch app, YouTube TV, iHeart You've got Fire TV, Sirius XM, channel 158, and so much more. So we've got you guys all covered there with so many different things. And you're able to go to VSiN.com for the full programming schedule, as it is cashing out with myself, Greg Peterson, right here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network. And we do have ourselves a great slate of baseball for this Sunday. We've run through most of the games, as the one game that was really off the board in terms of Cubs versus the LA Dodgers, now we're finally getting those numbers up, but we have yet to hit upon this game. We've got the LA Angels on the road against the Houston Astros, and hopefully for the sake of Mike Trout, you don't have a fan take the ball out of his glove like we saw on Saturday. That's an Astros fan trying his best to be able to help out the team, but don't rip balls out of people's gloves, and don't be the I don't even want to say that guy's name. The guy that just catches all the home run balls and everything like that. I'm forgetting his name, and rightfully so, because that guy does not deserve any. Oh, it's a Hempel guy, Zach Hempel. Yep, I'm sorry. I gave him the publicity that he does not deserve. Don't be like that. But you do want to be like these two pitchers, as you've got Kyle Hendricks going on the bump for the LA Angels, and Hayden Wesneski is on the bump for Houston. Typically, you see these guys pitching out there for the Chicago Cubs, and both of these guys moved in the offseason for the Halos are between plus 130 to plus 138 dogs, and between minus 150 to minus 155 is that number on Houston, with a total of 8.5. Right now, shaded up to the over, but in this circumstance, I set the Astros at a minus 136 on the money line. Right now, I'm seeing this tick up where I set at circa to a plus 138. That becomes my buy point on the Angels. Now, Kyle Hendricks is very much a pitch to contact guy. He's not going to go out there, have a high whiff rate or anything like that. We saw his walk numbers increase a little bit last season. I think that he's going to be able to figure it out, have a little bit better command. And for Wesneski, for his career, he gives up about 2.5 to 3 walks per 9 innings. Gets about 8 strikeouts per 9, just leaves the ball over the plate a little bit too much, and I'm becoming more and more bullish on this LA Angels team. They've already won 9 games this far this season, and for the LA Angels, we have seen them get off to quite a few hot starts and then just completely peter out, but I think that this could be a little bit different. Kyron Paris has already given the team 5 home runs this far this season. I don't think that he's going to be on that sort of a torrid pace, but Mike Trout, I just mentioned him. He got off to a little bit of a slow start to the season. I still don't think that he's fully 100%, but I think that he's getting back to his equilibrium. I think that he, moving forward, is going to be able to give this team some relatively good performances. And you've also got for the team Taylor Ward, who's already had a pair of home runs in this series. You've got a few guys that have been a little bit cold at the plate, and they're dealing with some injuries in that infield. But for the Houston Astros, you want to talk about a team that's been as cold as an igloo thus far this season. Sans that 12-run outburst on Friday, this has been one of the worst teams in all baseball in terms of being able to get on base. They do a good job of not striking out, but at the cost of not striking out, they're not making good hard contact. Yunior Diaz is hitting well below $150 for this unit right now. Isaac Paredes has had some struggles, to say the least. Finally got his first home run in a Houston Astros uniform. Christian Walker hitting below the Mendoza line of 200. And Yordan Alvarez, it's been sneaky bad how bad his struggles have been this far this season. 1 home run in 48 plate appearances. Now, he has been able to give you a 344 on base. That's starting to rebound a little bit, and I do like this Astros bullpen. Got a lot of guys like the Bryants, Brian King, Brian Abreu, Josh Hader. They're able to do a solid job, but being able to pair up Kenley Jansen along with Ben Joyce is rock solid for this LA Angels team as well. So won't take the plus money here on the Halos. Did set my total at 80.6. Do think that the Astros bust out with that offense, so looking at the over, and what we're looking at next is some hockey with our good friend Jonathan Davis here at the network on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Welcome back to Cashing Out here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
We're back here on Cashing Out on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network. Great to be joined by this man on the Progressive Guest Line, as we've got Jonathan Davis aboard. He does a tremendous job here at the network, gauging all things hockey. Also does a great job over at SiriusXM with a lot of their hockey shows as well, joining me right here, and it's always great to have you aboard, Jonathan. Thank you so much.
Greg, always a pleasure. I hope you're enjoying your Saturday night.
Oh, I am very much enjoying it, and now it's all the more better because the end of the NHL regular season is coming upon us. And do want to ask you about this first things first, because I always think that it's tricky to be able to gauge the final games of the regular season in any sport, whether that be college basketball, baseball, the NHL. How are you gauging things here in the last few games of the NHL regular season? Because as we both know, the motivation for so many of these teams just so vastly different.
Yeah, motivation becomes an issue. And look, in any sport, Greg, you have to pay attention to rosters. I mean, today in Washington, the Capitals sat Alexander Ovechkin and one of their best defensemen, Jacob Chikrin. So that line, there's a big line move once word got out, with those moves that the Capitals made. So, things that I'll also target, are milestones. You've got players like tonight in Dallas, Jamie Benn scored his 400th goal. So if you know that a guy is, at a big round number for career goals, or, hockey milestones are 20 goals, 40 goals, 50 goals, those are things that I pay attention to. But yeah, that's why when you look at the card tomorrow, on Sunday here, it's a little tricky because of some motivational issues that I'm concerned about with certain teams.
Yep, and I think that that's so well said, because we always take a look at incentives when it comes to the NFL. A lot of people don't think that there's a trickle down to hockey, but there certainly is. So I think that that's so well said by you. And what are some of the spots that you're taking a look at where the motivation might be either a little bit higher or a little bit lower than what some people are thinking?
Well, the Columbus Blue Jackets are playing have a home and home with Washington. They thumped them today with Alexander Ovechkin 7-0. And for the Capitals, for the Blue Jackets, their playoff hopes are, they're really hanging on by a thread. They have to win out, and they're going to need the Montreal Canadiens to lose their final two games. But there's still hope for Columbus, and they play before Montreal does on Sunday. So there is an advantage there in trying to target Columbus. Now, the way I target Columbus, especially against a team like Washington, the Washington Capitals have given up 3 or more goals in 10 straight games. They have cashed the first period over in 20 of the 24 games since the return to play of Four Nations. And in hockey, typically, 2.5 is a pretty common number, especially for an underdog. Columbus being on the road tomorrow, their team total is over 2.5. So I'll target Columbus over 2.5 and the first period over 1.5 with Washington Columbus tomorrow.
I think that that's a really good look by you, and I think that that's so well said, because we just are seeing some of these teams that are coming out with their hair on fire and being able to extract the early part of that matchup as well. I think that that's really big as well. And Jonathan, I think it's going to be very interesting to see what we get in terms of Bruins versus Penguins as well, as this is going to be a big one out there out east. These are two teams that typically we find in more like the Eastern Conference Finals, what have you. We'll see if we're able to get any sort of great performance out of these two teams moving forward. But how do you take a look at this Penguins versus Bruins game? Because as we know, there's been a little bit of a changing of the guard in the East over the last few seasons.
Yeah, the NHL put out a tweet tonight that it's the first time, and I can't remember how many years, that you've had the Bruins, Penguins, and I'm trying to remember now the third team that were all going to miss the playoffs this year. But, one guy that hasn't lost his zest for playing is Boston's David Pastrnak. Greg, he's got 102 points. The Bruins have 212 goals. He's been in on 47.7% of the Bruins' goals this year. That's more than Connor McDavid. That's more than Leon Draisaitl. That's more than Nathan MacKinnon. It's been a remarkable year for David Pastrnak on a team that, pretty much threw in the towel at the trade deadline when they jettisoned a lot of their players, and plus they've had to deal with some injuries. But David Pastrnak has been on quite a run. He's had, I'm just looking down my notes here, 13 points in his last 4 games, 2, 3, 3, and 5. So the way I'm going to target tomorrow is David Pastrnak to score a goal. You can get that at a small plus 110. Not the best for scoring a goal, but he's had such a propensity for scoring goals that I will continue to play. It's almost been like Ovechkin-esque of late. And then I'm also targeting, because of the point numbers I gave you, he's had 4 multi-point games in a row. And I think 5 of his last 6, he's had at least 2 or more points. So I'm going to take him over 1.5 points. You can get that at about plus 155, and a little pizza slice bet on over 2.5 points. So to get at least 3 points at 5-1. He's had that in 3 of his last 4 games. So, there's definitely some value. Pittsburgh's not one of the better defensive teams. Pittsburgh, 75% of their losses this year, they've given up at least 4 goals. So, look, I got a pretty good shot here. And then his teammate, a name that Joe Sorello is falling in love with, Morgan Geekie, kind of like the Geek Squad of Best Buy, but Morgan Geekie has also been on quite a run. He's had goals in 4 straight games, 7 of his last 9. He's had an assist in 5 of 6 and 6 of 8. So I'm going to kind of split a bet here. I'll kind of take half on him scoring a goal. That's at plus 240, and you can get him at an assist to get one assist plus 160. I'm betting that he gets at least one, and I'll make a small profit with Morgan Geekie as well. Did the same thing on Thursday night. Ironically, the Bruins scored only 2 goals. Who was in on both of them? Morgan Geekie and David Pastrnak.
Well, hopefully we'll be geeking out about being able to find a winner.
Yes.
As Jonathan Davis, who does such great work here at the network, joining me on Cashing Out on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network. And then I know that there's another game that you're taking a look at, and let's call it what it is. The money line on this one is very, shall we say, lopsided between the Calgary Flames and the San Jose Sharks here. And we'll get the Sharks at well over a plus 225 price on the money line, but it's been a rough season for them, to say the least. And the Flames, we are certainly going to be seeing them in the postseason. How do you evaluate this one with a Sharks team that it's been rough for them the last few seasons, and the Flames, they're hoping to be able to make some inroads this year?
Well, Calgary, yeah, they're life and death. They came off a big game against Minnesota. They've got to win out, essentially, Greg, to make the playoffs. And I'm kind of hoping that they don't, because I actually bet them. I did like a Steve Fezzik bet. I laid $4 to win $1, essentially, on Calgary to miss the playoffs this year. They need to win out, but you're right. The price is like, they're about minus 260 favorite tomorrow. I'm going to target the game going under 6.5, and shop around on that total because, as always, we're seeing various numbers anywhere from 5.5 to 6.5. All 3 meetings between Calgary and San Jose this year have gone under the total. They've had no more than 5 goals. Calgary is 19-5 to the under when they play teams like San Jose who are in their division. They're also 19-10 to the under following a victory. So I'm going to go under Calgary and San Jose.
And it's going to be interesting to see what we get out of the 2 teams that they're looking to chase down, because the Minnesota Wild and the St. Louis Blues, not necessarily facing off against, shall we say, the most rambunctious of competition, with the Wild facing off against the Anaheim Ducks, and the Blues are going to be taking on next the Utah Hockey Club. So those are 2 teams that are eliminated from the postseason. So that should be able to help you out with that Calgary bet as well. So we'll see if that comes to fruition. And when it comes to a little bit more of the postseason, are there any futures that you're taking a look at right now, or do you want to see how the playoff bracket just shakes up in general? Because as we know, a lot of these teams are pretty close to locked in with regards to postseason. Most of the East is all set, except for who's going to be able to get that final spot between the Canadiens and the Blue Jackets. So we just mentioned it with the Flames, but obviously there's a lot of seeding implications that are going to be happening in the next few days as well.
Well, what we do know is for the 4th consecutive year, the Los Angeles Kings and the Edmonton Oilers are going to meet in the playoffs. Edmonton has got the best of them the 3 previous years. They've won. They've actually done it a little quicker. They won in 7, won in 6, and then last year they won in 5. But LA is better suited to play Edmonton in the playoffs this year. Edmonton may be missing their best defenseman, Matthias Ekholm, for the playoffs. He got hurt on Saturday night. I will say that LA, the last I saw, they were 20-1 to win the Stanley Cup. It's worth a shot. If you're looking for a team further down on the board, LA is that team. I think, the first round, you've got Colorado and Dallas, 2 teams that both have Stanley Cup aspirations. One of them is going to get knocked out. So you got to be careful there. But I would say if you're looking for a long shot, I can't believe I'm saying it. I've never been very high on the Kings, but at 20-1, they are definitely worth a shot.
Yep, and right now the leader in points is the Winnipeg Jets, and we've got about 30 seconds remaining. How do you view their outlook for the playoffs? Because they've had themselves a really nice regular season.
They have. Here's the thing. I've never been big on Winnipeg, but Greg, they're 25-8 against teams this year with winning records. So that says a lot about this Jets team. They've been able to beat the good teams. The one thing that goes against them, since 2009, if you have not drafted the 1st or 2nd overall pick in the NHL draft, only 2 teams have won a cup since 2009 without having drafted the 1st or 2nd overall player. Winnipeg has never drafted or does not have a current player on their roster that was drafted 1st or 2nd overall.
Dynamite analysis from Jonathan Davis, and we'll get you guys all the bets I'm looking at for Sunday next on Cashing Out on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Welcome back to Cashing Out here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
We're back here for the final segment of the night, right here on Cashing Out on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network. If you're listening live to Cashing Out, well, you're going to be getting a replay of this fine program. Meanwhile, if you're catching the replay starting up at 10 o'clock a.m. Eastern Time, 7 o'clock a.m. Pacific Time, we've got the VSiN Weekend Morning Line. Everyone on that show doing an absolutely amazing job. And then Ready, Set, Bet with our good friends Mike Somich along with Matt Brown. They do a tremendous job getting you into the afternoon. And then we've got our Live Bet Sunday shows, which always tremendous there. So you're locked and loaded with a great slate for this Sunday, a Masters Sunday, a Sunday full of baseball, and so much more. And my job, it is very clear to be able to get you to that Sunday safely, hopefully with a little bit more money in pocket. And let's take a look at what I'm all liking on the card for this Sunday. And like I said, I'm not too much of a golf bettor myself. If I were to be looking at anything right now in terms of Masters, I'd be looking a little bit more at the derivative market. I've liked what I've seen out of Patrick Reed here in the Masters, and you're able to get him at a plus 140 to be able to finish in the top 5. He's in the top 5 right now, but obviously when you've got the likes of a Jason Day, Scotty Scheffler lurking in the wings, trying to be able to crack into the top 5, that does make it a little bit more difficult, but I think that he's going to be able to keep it steady. He's done a good job of not having the big giant blow-up mistakes or anything like that. And he's a guy that the public perception just isn't great around him. A lot of people just don't like his demeanor, things like that. But I mean, the guy goes out there and he just flat out golfs, and he golfs really well. So I do think that him being able to reach a top 5 is solid. And right now, in terms of the odds to be able to win the Masters outright, you've got a guy in Rory McIlroy that's minus $2 in a lot of spots. I saw some places more like a minus 180, and that's not something I would necessarily want to go against, but I wouldn't be jonesing to lay it, because last time Rory McIlroy found himself in this good of a spot, we remember what happened in 2011. Last time we have seen someone from 4 strokes or more back to be able to win the Masters. So I would say throw out there a little bit of caution before laying that sort of a number, but I just don't think that there's anyone with enough value that I'd be willing to take a shot on. So we've got a little bit in terms of Masters. I've got a lot more with regards to baseball, though. This is really my bread and butter sport when it comes to here in the spring/summer months now that college basketball is over, and all these best bets that we're going to get you guys, they are brought to you by G-Bank. As G-Bank, they are up in the ante, and if you sign up for a G-Bank signature Visa card, you're able to get up to $750 in rewards. As first things first, customers who spend $1,000 on eligible purchases within the first 90 days of opening an account receive a $250 bonus. And then in addition to that, if you spend $50,000 on gaming and sports app loads within the first 30 days of opening an account, you get another $500. That's up to a potential $750 bonus. Apply now over at VSiN.com/GBank. That is VSIN.com/GBank. This is subject to credit approval. Terms and conditions, they do apply. Now, let's take a look at the card that we've got for this Sunday. This is really the lone game that I've yet to hit. It's the old Slam Diego Padres going up against the Colorado Rockies. And for Kyle Freeland, he goes for the Rockies, and Michael King hopes to be the king for the San Diego Padres. That total is 7, and with the Padres, you're finding them about a minus 235 or so favorite. But if you're looking to lay the run line, you're able to get it at a minus 105, and that's certainly what I'm taking a look at in this spot. I'd be willing to go up to a minus 115 with the Padres. You've got a lot of fearsome bats in that lineup. Manny Machado, along with Fernando Tatis Jr. Have to love what those guys are able to bring you. Jackson Merrill has been able to get off to a nice start to the season. Now, it is a little bit of a banged-up squad, and you do want to be taking note of that for the San Diego Padres. Does feel like they've always got a few injuries just in general, but even with having a few guys, they're going to be out of the fold for this one. Merrill, who I just mentioned, he's the main guy, and Jake Cronenworth is as well. I do think that they're still going to be fine. Luis Arias, after a little bit of a rough start to the season, he's really doing a good job of moving the line. And for the Colorado Rockies, this team is, I fear, destined for a really, really rough season. I don't think that's going to be Chicago White Sox bad, but they're 14 games. They are at 3-11, and they have scored 4 runs or fewer in all but 2 of them. This is a lineup that is giving you absolutely nothing whatsoever. Therio Estrada's right now out of the fold for them. And when you got guys like Michael Toglia, Zach Veen getting starts for you, that's not a place where you want to be. And this team always has really demonstrative home and road splits. So you might only get like 3 or 4 runs out of the Padres. I personally will be taking a look at the over on 7. I think that this total has won just a scotch too low, even though Kyle Freeland, since coming off the injured list and right around June, July last season, he's been supplying a sub-4 ERA. He's been able to get his stuff together. But that said, you take a look at this Colorado Rockies team. when they've been away from home this far this season. Just absolutely embarrassing at the plate. Right now, hitting a .189 with a .242 on base, and they've got 3 home runs, 2 of which have been hit by Hunter Goodman when they've been away from home. Not a place where you want to be. So I do think that with the San Diego Padres, you're going to be able to get a good start out of the King and Mr. Michael King, who's been able to give you about, since joining the San Diego Padres, 10 to 10.5 strikeouts per 9 innings. Does have the propensity to give up a few walks, but again, the Rockies don't even have a lot of plate discipline either, so you don't have a lot to be able to bank on here. I do think that with the Rockies, it's going to be a rocky night, so I'm going to be willing to take a shot on that run line of the San Diego Padres, and going to be in on that total over as well for everything that I am liking on the card with regards to my write-ups. That's over on VSiN.com. And keep in mind, baseball betting show, I handicap and analyze every single game every single day. That's part of the VSiN family podcast, so do have you covered there. And one of those games I very much did highlight was the fact that we've got the A's going up against the New York Mets out there in Sacramento, and all but 2 games in Sacramento thus far this season have gone over the total. Right now, you've got a total of 9 with Kodai Senga right now, and the Mets being a -145 to a -140 favorite, and I would be willing to go up to a -148 on the Mets money line. I just am not a fan of Luis Severino. He's got a fielding independent that's a little bit north of a 5 for Severino, giving up north of 3 walks per 9 innings. His home runs per 9 rate has been relatively high over the last 2 seasons as well. And then for Kodai Senga, he does a nice job keeping the ball in the yard, but he does give up 4 walks per 9 innings, and he has to go up against a athletics team that has a lot of guys who are able to just bust the ball out of the yard. Tyler Soderstrom already up to 6 home runs this far this season. Shea Langoliers is coming off of a 29 home run season, and they're doing all this with Brent Rooker having a very pedestrian start to the season. And for the New York Mets, being able to have Pete Alonso hit the way that he has been rock solid. I do think that Mark Vientos is going to be able to pick it up a little bit as well. And for the A's, I'm just not bullish on this bullpen. They had a lot of guys that they dealt away towards back half of the season last year, with Victor Vodnik and company being out of the fold, and that's just not, or I should say with having Lucas Erceg and guys like that being out, that's just not great for this team. Now they're relying upon guys like a TJ McFarland to be able to pick it up, so that's a bit of an issue for you. And for the Mets, they've honestly had one of the better bullpen ERAs in the big leagues, but I'm not necessarily bullish on these guys like Reed Garrett and company. I actually like their longer guys in the likes of Jose Buto, Max Kranick, so I think that those guys are going to be able to do a relatively solid job here, but ball's just flying out there in Sacramento. If you have taken a look at minor league numbers, the PCL, which is where Sacramento is based out of, the Pacific Coast League, ball is just flying out in so many of those parks. You get the thin air out there in Sacramento. It's not as if the dimensions of the park either are ones where you'd think that it would be a total bandbox. Like, it's 330 down the lines, 400 to dead center. It's just very thin air, and when it gets hot out there in Sacramento, that ball just soars. So I'm going to be willing to take a shot on the over, and like I said, with the Mets, we'll be willing to take a shot on the money line up to a -148. I think that this one is a fun one if you're looking a little bit more for an under. We've got ourselves the Tigers and the Minnesota Twins doing battle out there in Minnesota, the state with the smallest drinks in the union. Get it? Minnesota. We're here all week, but that said, with Simeon Woods Richardson, he's going to be getting the start right around about a -115 or so with the Minnesota Twins. That totals 8.5. If we can get closer to a +110 on the Tigers, I'd be willing to pull the trigger there, but where I'm really looking right now in terms of the overnight line is the under. I set my total more around a 7.8. This is year number 2 for Casey Mize, coming off of major surgery, and his strikeout numbers have been up this far this season. 9 strikeouts per 9 innings, and for the Minnesota Twins, I talk about a guy in Casey Mize with injury. Well, they're just always injured. Shock, shock, surprise, surprise. Royce Lewis back on the injured list. Where have we seen this before? The answer is every single year is where we have seen this before. And for the Minnesota Twins, Carlos Correa has been awful for them this far this season. He's not hitting the ball too much. Matt Wallner is the one guy that's able to get on base for this team. You've got a lot of guys that are just up there pretty much swinging at air. And for the Detroit Tigers, the offense has been relatively solid to this point. I think we're going to see a little bit of regression. They've been dealing with a few injuries of their own, but Dingler at the catcher spot has been rock solid. I really like Kerry Carpenter, the fact that he's been able to give you 4+ home runs, not as hitting for a bunch of average, but the Tigers since July of the 2024 season season, top 3 team in terms of bullpen ERA, so I do like the under, and I do like, as of right now, if I can get a plus 110, that money line of the Detroit Tigers, and then this one just starting to come onto the board with the LA Dodgers. You're able to get that run line price at about a minus 125. Less than savory loss for them on Saturday. The 16-0 loss, the most lopsided loss at home of a shutout in the history of the LA Dodgers. I do think that Tyler Glasnow gets them back on track, and Colin Ray, not necessarily a guy that I'm willing to put back here. I did set my total at 88.3. Really like the way that Tyler Glasnow has pitched for the Dodgers. So looking at that run line of the Dodgers and the under, and what else we're looking at, the VSiN morning line is going to be starting up at 10 o'clock a.m. Eastern Time, 7 o'clock a.m. Pacific Time. They have you covered there, as it is a tremendous Sunday in sports, and we've got you covered on it all right here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.